Bueno. I'm Paul Gleeson, Ireland's ambassador to Chile, Peru and Ecuador. And we're delighted to be here at our new embassy in Santiago, celebrating St. Brigid's Day, which is the 1st of February. And it's a time when our embassies and consulates around the world celebrate the achievements of Irish women across a huge range of fields. So we'll be speaking over the coming days to Irish astronomers, to Irish athletes, but we're starting today with a terrific guest in the field of Irish literature. Lisa McInerney started with her blog, The Arse End of Ireland, and then burst onto the literary stage in 2015 with the magnificent The Glorious Heresies, or en español, Los Pecados gloriosos, which would go on to win the Bailey's Women's Prize for Fiction and the Desmond Elliott Prize. She followed that up with the also award-winning The Blood Miracles, or Los Milagros de la Sangre. And the third installment in the series, The Rules of Revelation, is due later this year. She's also a brilliant short story writer. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining us, and happy St. Brigid's Day.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for that really lovely introduction. I think I'll bring you with me everywhere, actually. That was great.
No problem. That'd be a great change from this pandemic. I'd love to be traveling the world with
Oh,
a great
God.
Irish writer. It'd be terrific. Tell us, how's your lockdown been? I mean, I'm conscious maybe writers don't get the sympathy they merit, because everybody thinks writers are stuck at home writing anyway. So, you know, but it's not necessarily that easy to be productive in a lockdown like this.
Oh, I mean, I tell you, the only reason I think a lot of us enjoy writing is because of the social life it involves, you know. So there's always kind of like literary festivals where you get to go out and meet readers, or there's, you know, book launches where you get to meet other writers, or whatever the case may be. And suddenly that's all taken away from you. So you're just, oh, I suppose I better do some work, you know. So, but that, like, I joke, but that's easier said than done as well, because I think during the pandemic there's a lot of anxiety. We're all kind of we're not feeling good. It's hard to kind of try and reflect whatever reality your story exists in, to try and incorporate you know, what's going on and the feeling of what's going on, or indeed to try and ignore it and to focus on your own work is very hard to do, because it does bleed in everywhere. And then you start thinking, well, should I be writing about that pandemic? When will it be acceptable for us? Do we need to have a certain distance from it? So I think there's a lot of writers that we assume would have gotten a lot of work done. And that hasn't been the case, I think, for a lot of us. And of course, people who have books coming out and stuff, who kind of are struggling now to reach readerships and audiences. Well, it's been a hard time, yeah.
For sure. It's really interesting there what you're saying about like 2020 and 2021. Are we going to see that in fiction? I mean, I was thinking of it with you as well, because your books you're writing so physical, you know, there's lots of movement and bodies, and you don't shy away from it. And there's the occasional still body as well, but you know, there's lots of physicality in it. And our lives last year and this year is, you know, social distancing and Netflix on the couch. It doesn't make necessarily for the most scintillating fiction, maybe, will it?
Yeah, we've gone very static, haven't we? Well, the novel that's coming next, The Rules of Revelation, it's set in 2019, and luckily I had written that I said, like, it is 2019, because I was thinking otherwise people are just going to be reading this going, how are these lads getting to go out to gigs and getting to cause ructions on the streets of Cork when that has so gone past us now? And when I was writing, I was getting to the end, you know, doing the edits and stuff, and the pandemic had set in, and we were just kind of putting the finishing touches on it. And I kept looking at these characters that I'd written on the page going, God, you have no idea what's coming around the corner for you at all.
Yeah. I mean, there may be a lot of books that run up to 2019 and then maybe, you know, start 2022, 2023 looking back. Which would be an easier thing to integrate.
I think that could be a challenge for a lot of writers too, and I think a lot of us are going to want to try and capture what the reality was during this mad couple of years. And I think we'll start seeing some fiction, possibly not for a while, until we can contextualize it properly, and we can kind of figure out how we felt and how people felt and what was actually happening, because you need a bit of hindsight to kind of figure it out. No, I think we won't. It would be a bit disingenuous to just kind of go, and then between 2019 and 2023, nothing happened.
Yeah, sure. Well, listen, tell us about the new book, The Rules of Revelation. I saw somewhere else you said this trilogy is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So are the guitars, are the speakers going to be amped up now for this third one?
Yeah. So essentially, the idea is, well, I guess it's very personal, a novel to me. So The three books are kind of part of a set rather than a trilogy. My agent told me to say that they were part of a shared universe. So I keep thinking like they're like the Marvel movies or something at this stage. So we've got these recurring characters, and in this one, yeah, rock and roll. So it's personal to me in that here we have the characters finally kind of looking at art and what they need to say about the world and what they want to say about their lives and what they are duty bound to say about Ireland or about Cork or whatever. So there's a bit of that in it. I think I thought when I started writing it that it was going to be a book purely about rock and roll. It's just going to be like about gigs and music and, you know, all of that. And it didn't. It turned into something a lot deeper and a lot more about kind of expression and kind of forgiveness and trauma and kind of dealing with a lot of stuff in the way that I think the Irish are best at, really, you know, taking something traumatic and making art out of it. So, I mean, hopefully that's what people will get out of it. We'll have to see.
Sure, yeah, and I mean, we certainly pride ourselves that for all the poverty and famine and emigration in our history, that it produces a lot of really good art. I mean, whether that'll hold true now as well, for the pandemic and all of this period. How do you find, Lisa, that period between, like, you've signed off on this book now, presumably, have you? Is it? I mean, the text finally. But for that period for you between now and when it hits the shelves or hits the Kindle or whatever it is, like, how do you find that? Does it feel like it's a weight off your shoulders and you can go and do other stuff, or do you find yourself thinking about how to be received, or is it a productive period for you usually?
No, I think you were right the second time. You start getting really anxious, or I do, about it, going, well, there's nothing I can do now. It's done. It's finished. I can't fix it. I can't assume what other people are going to say and try and head them off at the pass. All of that is done. It is what it is now. So this should be the time that I start relaxing and kind of looking forward to readers getting their hands on it. And I do, to some degree, but I also get a lot of sleepless nights and going, oh my God, are people going to be kind? Are they going to expect something different? You know, but sure, that's the way I am, though. I mean, I'm very hard on myself in general. As another thing I think we're very good at in Ireland is being overly hard on ourselves. So
being hard on ourselves.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep my mind off it, really. I've been doing some other bits of work that I've been kind of putting together, and I have to start thinking about novel number 4 now, what that's going to be about. So yeah, trying to keep my mind off it and watching it all ramp up again. Oh.
I mean, one thing that strikes me when I'm reading your writing is, you know, like all the best authors, I suppose, you have a great capacity to step into the shoes of these people who, presumably in many instances, have very different life experiences to your own. But I remember being surprised the first time I heard you weren't actually from Cork, given your capacity to capture that dialect so well. And in a similar fashion, you know, you're speaking in many cases in your books about working class experiences. And, you know, that would be the case with, say, Roddy Doyle, who's one of our most famous fiction writers, but it wouldn't necessarily be the case more broadly. So I just want to get a sense of, was that really important to you? Do you feel working class voices are underrepresented, not necessarily just in Irish fiction, but more generally than that?
Yeah, definitely. I think across the board, working class voices have been kind of marginalized, I guess, or pushed to the side a little. And the canon tends to be kind of very male and very middle class and very educated and all of these things. So yeah, for me, no, that said, it wasn't just a case of me kind of deciding, oh, I must represent my community, you know, and just deciding to write down a treatise rather than a novel. It was a case that these are the stories that I'm closest to, and these are the characters that I'm closest to. So I suppose it's very natural that these are the kind of lives that I would write about or want to write about. But definitely, I think it's something that we need to look at going forward. I mean, we're very proud of the amount of work we've done to kind of correct the gender imbalance in Irish writing recently. And I think we need to go further with that. We need to start looking at working class voices, male and female. I think we need to look at kind of getting traveller voices out there, new generation Irish voices, immigrant voices. There's a lot more we can do doing, you know.
And I mean, you spoke there about, you know, what's natural as well, and it's a good word for me when you're talking about how you write young people as well. Like I for me, the conversations between your young characters, say Ryan and Corrine, are you know, they're very authentic. It doesn't feel that you bring any judgment to those, or any kind of too much knowing, or anything condescending. And it's something I think as Irish people, we're so sarcastic, and it's so easy to be judgy about things. Is that something that you are conscious of just wanting to give that its own credence, and to trust their issues and dialogue for the importance that's attached to it for the characters itself, because it does come off very authentic, I think, as a consequence.
Oh, I'm really glad you said that. No, thank you. That's good. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing where, I was young once myself, so you kind of want to capture some of that intensity of the way you used to think, and the ideas you had about the world, and all of this, you want to try and capture that and kind of allow other characters a chance to experience that as well. And I think with Ryan and Kareen, I do. I kind of take it easy with them, and I really want to get it right. So I kind of slow down, and I make sure. The other thing I do when I'm doing dialogue is I often talk to myself in the office. I'd be chatting away, because you can often only hear if a piece of language is right if you're saying it. You have to hear what it sounds like. You have to hear the pattern, the rhythm, and go, yeah, that's perfect. Or else, oh no, nobody would talk like that in real life. So I do look a little bit insane, I think, really, if I'm writing and I'm like chattering away to myself. But I mean, that's how you get it done,
Yeah, of course. And you referenced there, I mean, the incredible output of Irish women novelists at the moment. I mean, yourself, Linda McKeown, Sally Rooney, Leisha Dolan, Anna Burns, Anna Hill, of course. I mean, you could go on, and you'd come to the risk of leaving people out. But, should it always have been thus? Is this just a case of publishers and agents casting the net as wide now as they always needed to cast it?
I mean, this is the thing about the capitalist kind of system as well. I mean, the fact that people started realizing that there was an imbalance and started making noise about it and started expressing an interest in seeing more of those voices and reading more of those books, the market is going to respond. That's how it works, So you did have suddenly publishers going, yeah, this is a good point. We haven't been casting the net as widely as we should have. We haven't been looking in the right places. People want to see this, so let's go find it, And I think that the reason women's writing in particular is so strong right now in Ireland is you've had women kind of deciding, well, we're going to make that difference ourselves. You have the likes of independent publishers like Tramp Press, who set up and specifically looked out for, new and interesting voices, including women's voices, and also kind of looked at the canon and decided to try and unearth maybe female writers who had been underappreciated. You had the likes of The Stinging Fly, did that for Maeve Brennan. You had Sinead Gleeson, who was a journalist, now an author in her own right, who saw that imbalance and proactively went out there and collected short stories from Irish women writers, some of whom had been kind of forgotten and had been left out and people weren't talking about. So the fact is, like, it's always been a very positive movement. And I think if people realize that about anything that they see being imbalanced in writing, and kind of realize that it's the positive movement, it's making that noise and kind of deciding that that's what you want to read and making publishers aware of that, that's going to do a lot of good,
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And it means it's a more welcoming environment, I suppose, for aspiring young writers as well. And I wanted to ask you that, like, I mean, particularly at St. Brigid's Day, and we're talking about, the achievements of Irish women and Irish women writers. What advice you'd give to young women interested in following your footsteps, whether they're here in South America or back in Ireland? I think at the end of one of your books, there's a great guide to, some of these rules, make me like stay off Twitter, don't be playing solitaire. But what would your advice be for people looking to break through? Because it is, for all the success and the great novels spoken about, it is tough to break through still, isn't it?
It absolutely is. So there's no denying it's an uphill slog. But I think there are two things that people really need to remember. One is, if you want to be a writer, then you're going to have to get involved in that world in some way before you ever get published. You need to know what people are publishing. You need to maybe subscribe to a few literary magazines or read some literary magazines online that publish for free. Kind of see what's out there. Hone your voice based on what you think the standard is, what needs to be said. Like, consume as much work as you possibly can, like read endlessly, and hone what you have to say. The second thing is, whatever it is that you have to say, no one else is going to say that for you, like nobody. So if you have a story in your head, you have characters in your head, that's where they're going to stay unless you start doing something about it. So you don't need to worry about like having this perfect manuscript on the first go. Just get something done. You can always fix it later, but get something done, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody.
It's very good advice. And don't set your book 2 years in the future in case another pandemic has hit out and you find it
Definitely
overtaken.
not.
Listen, Lisa, that's absolutely brilliant, and we're really grateful to you giving your time to us. We're going to be really looking forward to the Rules of Revelation, and hopefully the Spanish translation will follow that as well, and that brings your novels to so many Spanish-speaking countries, which is wonderful as well. So thank you very much. Happy St. Brigid's Day, and wishing you all the best for 2021.
And to you, thank you.